Hi, it's Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video, an astrology video actually, which I don't do all the time, but I really love doing them. I'm doing some astrology analysis of Donald Trump's chart and King George III, who was the king that we were revolting against for the American Revolutionary War. Now, I did another video about these two subjects last year in February. And at that time, I just did an analysis of their natal charts, and then I looked at aspects or transits of what was going on in their charts for King George at the decisive battle of Yorktown, which was the decisive battle of the Revolutionary War. And for Donald Trump, I looked at the current aspects and transits, so back in February of 2025. Today, I'm going to look at both of their natal charts in a new way. I'm going to look at the degrees that the planets hold in each of their respective charts and try to bring a little more light to their personalities using the degree system. I did this system when I analyzed Pam Bondi's chart, and I got a really good response on it, and I really enjoyed doing it. So I want to do it again with Donald Trump, of course, because, everybody's talking about him all the time. And I want to look at King George III to see if we can figure out how similar or how dissimilar these two figures are, because they do occupy a very similar place in their respective time of history. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen and start talking about these two guys. First, I want to talk about what these two rulers have in common. Both men have Leo rising. So Leo is this symbol here, and you can see that on both charts, the horizontal line bisecting the chart comes right on top of Leo. Donald Trump's chart, which is this one on the left side, we have a few planets in the first house. And this, the symbol that just says AC, that means ascendant. So that is his ascendant in his first house. And for King George, who also has a Leo ascendant, his ascendant is up here. And I'm going to talk about those in detail in just a moment. Right now, I just want to point out that Leo rising is common to monarchs and people in the public eye that have great influence. Now, both men are Gemini. Trump is at 22 degrees Gemini, conjunct his Uranus at 17 degrees Gemini, and also conjunct his North Node at 20 degrees Gemini. Donald was born on an eclipse, having the moon in direct opposition to his sun. Here's the moon. It's in opposition to his sun, node, and Uranus, which are all conjunct. Now, being born on an eclipse is also a predominant trait of monarchs and those who are highly influential and in the public eye. For instance, Kate Middleton and William are also both born on eclipses. Now, George's sun is at 13 degrees Gemini, conjunct his Mercury, but note that George's moon is at 10 degrees of Capricorn, conjunct his Uranus at 5 degrees of Capricorn. For both men, having Uranus so close to their very personal planets, the sun and moon respectively, indicates that both would be prone, frankly, to madness or genius or chaotic behavior or sudden and erratic behavior and decisions, or all of it. So George, while not born on an eclipse, certainly has the North Node influence on his life because he has the North Node in his first house of Leo. Another instance of commonality between these two charts is the involvement of Mars. For Donnie, the Mars is conjunct his ascendant in Leo. And for George, Mars is conjunct his midheaven in Aries. Now, both of these places in one's chart, the ascendant and the midheaven, are very sensitive points in the chart. Now, what do I mean by sensitive? It means that it is really important to the individual. It will be a real big part of figuring out what their life is going to be like, but also to have planets near or conjunct, as we do, with those points on the chart really impacts their personality and their life in general. So for Donnie, Mars is conjunct his ascendant in Leo, and for George, Mars is conjunct the midheaven in Aries. Both of these are fire signs, Leo and Aries, and both as I said before, are very sensitive placements. This would indicate in Donnie's case that he has a short fuse, a quick temper, is extremely sensitive about his physicality. In other words, the way he looks, the way he dresses, the way he walks, the way he talks, including something like the size of his hands, hands being a very important thing to Geminis. For George, having Mars conjunct his midheaven would indicate a rather military or martial bend towards his career and legacy. The 10th house and midheaven being legacy, the 9th house indicating foreign places. So George's expression of his career and legacy is all about foreign countries, which is true. We'll talk about that later. George is a strong leader, but he's also given to the impulsiveness and violence of the planet Mars, all things martial in his way of leading. In addition, his Mars is directly square to his Uranus-Moon conjunction. Here is his Uranus-Moon conjunction in early degrees of Capricorn, and here is his Mars conjunct the midheaven in early degrees of Aries, and those are 90 degrees away from each other, which is a square aspect, which is a stress aspect. So George would have also ruled by his chaotic emotions. The moon is made chaotic by Uranus, and it's ruling his actions in Mars because of the square. So when making decisions involving his career, which would involve military action, that's his go-to. That's what he's going to try right off the bat. You could say that he strove to have military power over others for his entire reign. Now, Donald Trump has Pluto in the first house. This is Pluto. It's not the way I draw Pluto, but it's the way this program draws Pluto, which makes him a power seeker, one who understands power and is drawn to it. He desires great power for himself, so he has spent a lot of energy and time learning how power works and working at cultivating power over others or power in some form for most of his life. This Pluto is sextile his Neptune, meaning that he can lie with alacrity, he can create fantasy, visions, use his imagination when dealing with people, and would be able to convince them of almost anything. It would also explain his attraction to foreign figures and those who are leaders of other countries or foreign businesses, as well as powerful religious leaders for whom he became an unlikely figurehead. He's very good at manipulating people and understanding their needs. Now, this would be great if he were someone who wanted to help people, but because of his insecurity, which is shown by his Mars square Sun on the ascendant and the moon opposing his Sun, his only concern is with soothing and helping himself. Now let's talk about their respective ascendants in terms of degree. Now George has a 0 degree rising, a 0 degree Leo rising. This makes him super Leo. 0 degrees of Leo confers ultimate power. So he knows inherently that he has all the power until the Revolutionary War with the soon-to-become United States of America. With Mars directly on his midheaven, which is his career and legacy, and in the 9th house of foreign entities, the power of Leo enforced by Mars in its home sign of Aries was to indulge in military force and violence, which are common players in his life and reign as king. Now Donnie, let me switch to Donnie. Now Donnie has Leo rising at 29 degrees. This is an ultimate Leo degree as well. So he will always want to do what he loves to do or what feels good to him. With Mars conjunct his ascendant, there will be a special emphasis on making his body feel good. Love affairs, love, lovers, mistresses, things that touch, etc. are very special to him. Anything that he has needs to be valuable or top value or high quality, or at least look like it is. And power, are you sensing a theme here? Power is extremely important to him. He will rise to a high-ranking position. Obviously, he's president of the United States. But also with this degree, things having to do with tourism and vacations. He is a famous hotelier. Entertainment places, restaurants. Mar-a-Lago is where he loves to entertain, and it has a restaurant there, and he eats there every night when he's at home. Also, the Kennedy Center. he just loves this stuff. And also acting, theaters, actors. Trump famously loves people to look the part and has frequently employed actors, people from Fox News and other entertainers, Dr. Oz, the Pillow Guy, different podcasters, as well as sought out actors and entertainers to support him, while he himself has been an entertainer for years, both on and off television. Basically, anytime a camera is trained on him, he's playing to the crowd. Sports are important. His golf game is his only form of exercise, and he proudly points to all his wins at golf. And children. He has 5 children that he recognizes. It's Leo, right? So the sun, which is the symbol of Leo, gold, golden things, guilt. These are all things he thinks the world should have more of. Need I say more? Look at the Oval Office. He is very proud. He has a very high opinion of himself. And also the father, or the help of the father, is another indication coming with this degree. Yes, Fred Trump bequeathed his son a big bag of money. Donald repaid the favor by bankrupting businesses bearing his father's name 6 times. Fred Trump bailed him out many times, but at some point in the 80s, he stopped. That was when Donnie turned to New York banks and later foreign investors. Now, the influence of Leo on both of these men is so similar and so strong that I would say you can imagine that King George III had a very similar personality to Donald J. Trump. Both leaders would be and are very flamboyant, want their way in everything, and would brook no arguments. They also assured that both men would rise to the greatest level of fame and public influence. Both men have their Venus conjunct Saturn in their charts, but in different signs. Having Venus conjunct Saturn will often mean that there's a separation or distance to one or both parents, that one or both parents is not available to love the child. We know with Donnie that his mother was often not available for him due to health issues and that he was sent to military school in his teens. For George, he was raised by both parents until he was 12, when his father Frederick, Prince of Wales, died unexpectedly. Following Frederick's death, his mother, Princess Augusta, became the primary influence on the young heir. She raised him in relative isolation at Leicester Square and Kew Palace and kept him away from the court of his grandfather, King George II, whom she deeply mistrusted. Augusta chose John Stuart, the 3rd Earl of Bute, to be George's mentor and tutor. Bute became a central father figure and a major intellectual influence, shaping George's interest in architecture and science. Under his mother and Bute's guidance, George was imbued with a sense of strict morality and duty, which was intended to prepare him for the throne and distinguish him from the more decadent lifestyle of his grandfather's court. Now, these facts about George's early life track completely with a Venus conjunct Saturn influence. Now we're going to focus on King George and the stellium that he has in Gemini. I hope that works for you guys. Let me just check. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. While these two men have some distinct differences, the results of the astrological influences are very similar. You'll catch the inferences as I describe them. Now, George has Venus conjunct Saturn. Here's Venus, along with Mercury, Neptune, and Chiron. He has a stellium in Gemini, that is very interesting. Saturn represents boundaries and limitations, conjuncting Venus, which is what you love and value, your relationships with women, money, and healing. Conjuncting Neptune, illusion, spirituality, foreign things, imagination, deception. Conjunct Mercury, which is your communications, your ability to both give and receive them, the hands, your mind, everyday routines. And Chiron, where you are wounded and need to heal, your ability and attitude toward healing, your ability towards healing others, your connection to the other world versus spirituality, just things that are beyond. All in the sign of Gemini, the twins, which is the dual sign of multiples, communicators, salespeople, entertainers, speakers, things that move fast, things that you do with your hands, fast thinking, changeability, mutability, able to change on a dime, whether it's your mood, your mind, your language, whatever. So George was an extremely mercurial man but certainly one of great intellect. He was most likely easily influenced by others, yet he himself exerted great power and influenced people as well. Now, very often I find that Geminis are thought of as spacey, flighty, not very intelligent because they flit back and forth to various topics very quickly. And I'm pretty sure that that's how people saw George, because he had a strong Gemini in his chart, 6 planets in the sign of Gemini. But the thing about Geminis is they are intelligent. Their mind just works faster than everybody else's, and so it appears that they've become bored with something and moved on to the next. Now, most people who get bored with a topic usually do so because they can no longer understand it, or it's above them, or they just can't deal with it anymore. Not so with Geminis. Geminis absorb a great deal about a particular topic, and then they move on. This is also true of Sagittarians. A little bit of boredom and they're moving on, but they have retained the knowledge. And that's what's important to know about George. He may have played dumb just to get along with people and to get more information out of him, but he was not dumb. And I don't think Donald Trump is dumb either. He was most likely influenced by others, yet he himself exerted great power and influence over people as well. His spirituality must have been sincere and deep, and he would defend it to the death. He would have had a sense that he was fulfilling a destiny, that he was responsible for his subjects' souls, with a very beneficent Jupiter in Cancer, which was well aspected to both Mercury and the North Node, which we stated previously was in his first house. The degrees of his Gemini stellium range from Chiron at 5, the Sun at 13, Mercury at 25, Saturn at 27, and Neptune at 29. Now, 5 and 29 are both degrees which confer fame, especially when in the top half of the chart, which is where both his Neptune and Chiron happen to be. His Uranus is at 5 degrees as well, but appears in Capricorn in the 6th house, which is the lower half of the chart, so this would be expressing in the everyday routines of his life. Both 5 and 29 bring fame, attention, light, children, creativity, and self-expression. They become monarchs. They love entertainments or become entertainers. They're quite strong physically, and they have remarkable hair. But the 29th degree also confers mastery and natural gifts, or they could bring about a very turbulent life, which would be full of change and transformation. All of this would be expressed in a leonine way where dramatic, high-stakes situations would be ever present, allowing the native to show off their skills and natural abilities. The Sun at 13 and Mercury at 25 are both Aries degrees, meaning that he will act with an Aries characteristic more often than not when it comes to himself, his ego, and his communications. This would be a person who takes action, has a fighting spirit, won't give up, often finds themselves at war, in conflict, struggling, and possibly abusing or being abused, but exhibits leadership and is not afraid to start over. Now, you may have spaced out for a minute over those last few sentences that I said and thought that I was talking about Donald Trump, but I'm talking about George III. This is how similar their lives were, however you want to look at it. Saturn at 27 Gemini is actually another Gemini degree, which turns him towards communication, gadgets, and the like. I don't know how many gadgets actually existed in George's times, but whatever they were, he was into them. Also, this Saturn is part of the stellium in Gemini and conjunct those other Gemini planets. There would be a constant feeling that he needed to follow the rules, stay within the boundaries of his world, and be patient, so patient. Now, we know this is true from the little bit of history I gave you about his upbringing. For a person with the moon conjunct Uranus, this would be frustrating and difficult. But for many monarchs, their lives are a waiting game for their parent to pass on, which is a bittersweet way to reach one's goals. Pluto is at the 1st degree of Scorpio, an Aries degree, like his Sun and Mercury, and is trine several planets in his Gemini stellium. Those late degree Gemini planets, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and Neptune, give him so much power. This also guarantees that there would be no resistance to his ascendancy to the throne. Unrestricted power was George's destiny, and he fulfilled it. He has plenty of other planetary aspects that taught him about life, but struggling for a job was not one of them. Jupiter trines his north node in the first house, Jupiter being at 22 degrees of Aries and his node being at 23 degrees of Leo. These are Capricorn and Aquarius degrees respectively. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted, sextile his Mercury in Gemini, which is in its rulership. So those are both strong planets. George would have been a good speaker and listener, amazingly, due to this placement. Jupiter is high in his chart in the ninth house, where his midheaven is placed. He reigned during a period of significant diplomatic events and created the administrative structure for British diplomacy. His personal approach to foreign affairs was characterized as determined and at times stubborn in an effort to maintain British power, and he was not known to be a diplomat. His Mars, which is conjunct his midheaven at 7 degrees Aries, is in a Libra degree. Even so, he had Mars in its rulership, and during his 60-year reign, he was at war nearly all the time, including a 49-year conflict with France. All right, now we're going to switch over to Donald Trump. Now, we've already covered Donnie's rising sign at 29 degrees of Leo. And if you recall, 29 is a Leo degree. But there are two other Leo degrees that feature in his chart, 5 and 17. Donnie has Neptune at 5 degrees of Libra, Jupiter at 17 degrees of Libra, and Uranus at 17 degrees of Gemini. All of these degrees confer fame, attention, creativity, self-expression, and are connected with monarchs, entertainments, and entertainers, strength, as I mentioned before, physical strength, and hair. The 17th degree also acts like a retrograde influence, delaying achievement, but along with that brings great power and a potential for greatness. So Donnie was always destined to be recognized for his unusual hair, his connection with entertaining, his power, and his greatness. Now, we can quibble about whether or not he is truly great, but I think we can all agree that he's definitely famous. This heavy dose of Leo in his chart is noticeable in the outward manifestations of his lifestyle, but you can also see that he uses Neptune to mislead people and even to get them to believe outright lies. His Neptune falls in the house of communications, and he was one of the first politicians after Barack Obama to harness the power of social media to influence people to his way of thinking. With Jupiter also in that house, he managed to expand his influence to a high degree, all the while making things seem almost normal, the influence of Libra over that house of communications. His Uranus trines Jupiter, giving it an even more explosive power, and explosions seem to be something that Donnie really likes. He exploded the White House, he bombed Nigeria, he funded bombing in several other countries around the world. This is something he likes to do. Next, we come to the Scorpio degrees 8 and 20. He has Mercury in Cancer at 8 degrees and the North Node at 20 degrees Gemini with his Sun in Uranus. His destiny and mode of communication is to be delivered with Scorpio precision, all the while looking like it's an accident. He's a master communicator, even if he does not quite understand what he is communicating at all times. Has he been used as a useful idiot? Perhaps. And some of that probably suits his agenda because he believes it keeps him out of jail. It is his destiny to become powerful and also to keep secrets. And we've seen how successfully he has kept secrets for all these years. You can't do that if you are a total idiot or non-intelligent. I think the bluff suits him. His moon in Sagittarius is in the degree for Sagittarius. This is another degree that acts like an extra challenge, almost like a retrograde, promising delayed achievement. And I just want to say about delayed achievement, I believe that Donald Trump has actually run for president at least 5 times. I know that he's done the 3 times that we know about in recent memory, but he also put his hat in the ring for president at least twice, if not more times. And each time he dropped out fairly early in the race. But this, I'm just giving this as an example to show you that the delayed achievement, the delayed gratification to his fame, he was trying for this for a long time. All right. Great power, potential for greatness, abundance, expansion, wisdom, college, traveling, exploration. These are all things that are connected to the Sagittarian degrees. Now his Saturn is at 23 degrees of Cancer, a degree which indicates divorce, surprises, high places. Stay away from windows, Donnie. high tech, new tech, humanitarianism, organizations, or large organizations, friends, and networking. Well, along with his longtime friendship and business relationships with J.E., he also had several charities that were embezzled. He's had 2 divorces, many tech bros as supporters, and he loves new tech, although he has no idea how to use it. Then we come to his Venus at 25 Cancer, which is an Aries degree. This, I believe, is his Achilles heel. When people flatter him, it touches that little hole in his chest where his heart should be, and he melts. He does anything they say until they break his heart. Then the Cancer Venus pulls back into its shell, flashes out that Scorpio tail from his Mercury, which is also actually in Cancer, and stings them. It's a pattern we have seen all too often. Now his Mars is at 26 degrees of Leo, which is a Taurus sign. This is also an extra challenge, acting like a retrograde, granting delayed achievement. Confers great power, though, the potential for greatness, the love of money, the love of food, the earth, stability, luxuries, the voice, singing. He loves to hear himself speak. He has some of these, and without that, Mars, he wouldn't seem human. All right, so that is my wrap up on Donald Trump and King George III. I just wanted to point out so many similarities between their charts. I'm not making really any predictions about what will happen to DJT. I'm just saying that his chart is very similar to George III's, and George III kind of, from in our perspective in this country, he went into ignominy. He lost the country, and we didn't want anything to do with him. But in his country, he actually had a pretty good reputation. He was a war king. He was always at war. And I think this kind of penchant for war is also there in the Donald Trump chart. I don't know what will happen to him at the end of his life. I just know that both he and King George III have this very Martian military warlike tendency that they want to fight. They always want to fight. And they're stubborn about it. So that's what I have for you today. Happy New Year. I hope everybody's enjoying a wonderful New Year. Please make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. And I hope that you will like and share this video with other people if you think they'd be interested in it. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.